What's the good word, y'all? DKB here. So there was an interesting article that came out with Mike LaFleur being named a rising coaching candidate in the NFL by the media, specifically NFL Network's Tom Pelissero. But this is something that it's not the first time that we're actually hearing this. We know that he has the connections with his brother Matt from the Packers, coming from the Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay tree. There's a lot of good things to like and love about Mike LaFleur and what he's been able to do. But he's been very undervalued and very underrated, I think, in what's been happening in the NFL in terms of these elite passing offenses, exceptional rushing attacks with elite defenses that have led to championships. It's very easy to look at what the New York Jets have done, even in our most successful season to date, and not relish the fact that we're getting wins and kind of pinpoint the fact that we're not lighting up scoreboards left and right. But in all regards, Mike LaFleur came into a very interesting situation. It was not an immediate, I wouldn't say anybody would have known immediately what the outcome for this New York Jets would have looked like in just a 2 year span of having Robert Saleh and his coaching staff come on. And then again, it can't be understated enough that Mike LaFleur, a lot of these guys on his coaching staff, most of them now are, positional coaches, things like that. But still, having a guy at your helm like Mike LaFleur that's never actually done that particular job of being a coordinator, it's a lot of projection and things that are going to have to happen. But very, very bright mind. If we go back and take a look at kind of his coaching history, and then we'll dive into some of the things here. 2014, he starts off offensive coaching intern for the Browns. He goes to the Falcons, again, offensive assistant coach. This time, instead of an intern, and then 2017 is where we start seeing the paths cross. Robert Saleh, Kyle Shanahan brings him on. He starts to kind of gain more experience. He gets more involved in the offense. He starts off as a wide receivers coach and then a passing game specialist. Ultimately, in 2019, when they have their most successful season, he evolves as a passing game coordinator, continues that into 2020, and then we know he joins Robert Saleh on his staff, and ultimately he ends up becoming our coordinator. He has an abysmal first season, right? But I wanted to dive into the exact quote that I was able to get pulled up from Tom Pelissero into why he considers Mike LaFleur a rising candidate. So here we go. It's probably a little soon for Packers coach Matt LaFleur's younger brother, who's still developing as a play caller and a leader. But if the Jets keep winning with a very young core, it won't be a shock to see Mike LaFleur get an interview request or two. He's personable and from the same Shanahan McVay tree of offense that has produced many other successful head coaches. In 2021, the Jets played 4 different quarterbacks during one 5-game stretch in which they ranked number 1 in the NFL in yards per game. This season, the Jets are 5-1 since Zach Wilson returned from injury despite all kinds of offensive line ailments and the loss of breakout rookie running back Breece Hall. That adaptability will serve LaFleur when his opportunity comes. So he's not even saying that, he's going to take the world by storm. He's the next Sean McVay. He's the next Andy Reid. Anything of the sort, but there's a lot of feathers in Mike LaFleur's cap that they just spoke to that does let you know how much adversity he's hit with this team. And keep in mind, he's had one of the best dispositions of any coach. He's come under fire, and Robert Saleh's mentioned this as well, way before even Robert Saleh and even Jeff Ulbrich, in terms of being on the hot seat and the team wanting to see him get removed. So keep in mind, he walks in, he has a brand new rookie quarterback. The talent across the board is porous, right? In the running back room, we just pick up Michael Carter. In the wide receiver room, we grab Corey Davis. We have Denzel Mims, who we just seen had a interesting rookie year, but then he has an abysmal first season in this new West Coast offense, which would be expected if you understand the background of where he came from and what his strengths were. You get Elijah Moore and you get some pretty elite production for a little while for there, but then you have injuries all throughout. Corey Davis is, suffering through multiple ailments. You take a look at the tight end room. None of those guys should have even necessarily been on a roster. The offensive line, multiple injuries, and then you have a defense that has actually taken a step back in the first year as we transition from a 3-4 to a 4-3. So there has been absolutely no chance of there being a good synergy throughout the team, and that even if the offense is struggling for all 17 of those games, at least the defense is giving them multiple opportunities. They have ample choices to try to go out there and figure it out. So you see it in the rankings, right? We rank 31st in point differential, 31st in I want to say it's the yardage differential, 26th in yards, 28th in points, 28th in giveaways, 27th in yards. Rushing, we're 32nd in attempts. We're score 18 not 18, excuse me. We rank 18th in touchdowns, so middle of the pack given the lack of opportunities we actually had playing in so many games from behind. And then in the passing game, 13th in attempts, 20th in yards, 25th in touchdowns, 29th in interceptions. I mean, you don't look at a single unit and say, okay, I think we have something here other than quarterback. And that takes a while. Zach Wilson has to return from injury, and then you see him go on a pretty solid 5-game stretch. We fast forward to 2022, we provide a lot more depth. We find some additional pieces. Garrett Wilson that we think will mesh well. Laken Tomlinson, who's looking like a miss, but there's not a single person that you really look at during the offseason that says that shouldn't have been a good signing outside of maybe, dollar amount per se. But you're talking about somebody that we expect at least replacement level Pro Bowl talent from. And, that's John Benson's job to really figure out there. But irregardless, we deal with a lot of the injuries as well. The tackle plan with Mekhi Becton and Dwayne Brown coming in as a backup, and George Fant finally manning the left side where we see him dominate in 2021. All of those plans go awry, and they continue to go awry throughout the season. So for the emphasis of this team, and everybody from top down says it, Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, Mike LaFleur, they all tell you that it starts in the trenches. You don't even have that to your advantage, because every time you come up with a plan, every time you have a great backup plan that you come up with, and hey, there's this alternative, we have the superpower that is AVT and his versatility. He goes down. You finally find an all-star in Breece Hall. He goes down. Luckily, Garrett Wilson has kind of been taking off, but he has that bit of a lull as well as we try to get Zach Wilson transitioned back into his starting role and getting this offense going. So it's a lot that's happening. Keep in mind, during this whole 2022 season, we also had the second ranked schedule in terms of defensive teams that we were playing. So this couldn't be a better testament to the job that Mike LaFleur has still been able to do to manufacture wins. Ultimately, as they say, you are what your record are, and we're 6-3. We're tied with a handful of other teams that you wouldn't even think the Jets can have their name spoken in the same realms with. Chiefs, Bills. It looks great. Better records than the Bengals. I mean, you couldn't really predict this, and so to even have us in this situation is a huge plus. And I know a lot of the fans and critics, whoever, that are going to try to undermine this are going to say, well, it's been the defense that are winning these games. But ultimately, the defense isn't going out there and getting 21 points worth of, touchdowns on their own. It's complementary football, as they say. The offense is not exceptional, but they're doing their part to make sure that these defensive efforts don't go to waste. And I think this Patriots game may be another indication that we're starting to take that next step, and Mike LaFleur is figuring things out with giving Elijah Moore more opportunities in the slot. Garrett Wilson shining on the outside. Denzel Mims playing more of a critical role, with Corey Davis looking like he's again missing multiple games during this season. And you see it in the numbers. I mean, we end up going top 10 in point turnover differential. We're 12th in yardage differential. 12th in 18th in terms of the offense as a whole in yardage, 19th in points, 23rd in giveaways. So you have an increase in all the right areas you're looking for. You're seeing decreases in the areas we don't want, like the giveaways. And I love it. We made a commitment to try to go technically middle of the pack in terms of rushing attempts. Right now, we're sitting at 20th. It's only looking like we're going to be feeding our running game more and more, especially with James Robinson catching up to speed. So you can easily see that being somewhere between the 14th and the 17th spot. by season's end, touchdowns, things like that. The touchdowns are where we're really, hurting and ailing at. I don't see those necessarily coming in bunches unless Zach Wilson particularly takes another step. And not even in terms of just putting up 300 yards games, but in terms of being able to consistently convert these first downs. Big plays are bound to happen at some point for us, and then I think it'll be a matter of what happens in the red zone. But between some of these masterful games that Mike LaFleur has been able to call, and this Buffalo Bills one was definitely the cherry on the top for the season so far, you see everything slowly coming together. And I think Mike LaFleur's vision has definitely been altered. If you would have asked me before, I definitely think, and we've seen this multiple times, he gets pass heavy sometimes. I do think he would like to see some of those games where the wide receivers and Zach Wilson just can't be stopped. We had a lot of players mentioning that at the beginning of the season. How are you going to guard all of us? So I'm sure he's still finding a way to figure that piece out. But the sheer fact that he's been able to shift his full philosophy, which I don't even think is a strong shift. He'll tell you his West Coast offense is predicated on the run game, to trying to get that piece of his offense going, and then seeing that success follow to the wide receiver and tight ends. You couldn't ask for more. So I would definitely agree. I did have a few great conversations about if Jeff Ulbrich would get some looks before Mike LaFleur, just considering he's a defensive coach. And this job that this defense has done with turning around, we've all seen the stat, I'm sure by now, that we were dead last year. This would be the first time in history that a team would shoot all the way up into the top 10 in all of the key rankings that they're looking for. So interesting debate, but let me know what you guys think. How do you feel about the job Mike LaFleur has been able to do? Would you still look for, an upgrade first chance you get? Does he need to go? It'll be interesting to see, but appreciate the support as always, and I'll catch you guys again. Peace.